The hero of Gallowmere has returned, fully remade from the grave up. But do these dusty bones stand the test of time? Let's find out. What's up guys, Canadian Guy A here, and back with the long-awaited review of MediEvil. Before I begin, I'd like to mention and thank Sony Interactive Entertainment Canada for giving me an opportunity to be able to review this game and to be able to get a review code. Back in the day, all the way to before Spyro was even shown off to the world, PlayStation had announced that they would be digging up an old friend of the PlayStation family, Sir Daniel Fortescue, in a remake of the original MediEvil. Lo and behold, a Spyro and CTR remake later, we finally get to play the game that was announced all those years ago. Zarok was a sorcerer who hated people in their simple ways, so he decided to raise an army against the people and take over Gallowmere for himself. However, according to the legends and fables, Sir Daniel Fortescue had cleaved through waves and waves of Zarok's minions, and though mortally wounded, Sir Daniel destroyed Zarok. Unfortunately, this is completely fake. In fact, Sir Daniel was the first one to die in battle, with an arrow through the eyeball.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
So, the legends were, slightly exaggerated. A century later, however, somehow, Zarok returned to the land of the living and has decided to try and take over the land of Gallowmere once more. However, just as Zarok has returned, so has the legend, but not really, Sir Daniel Fortescue. When Zarok casted his dark magic on Gallowmere, he actually accidentally resurrected the false hero of Gallowmere, giving him a chance to fight once more against Zarok and claim the actual title he originally undeservedly earned. MediEvil is, at its core, an RPG with elements of platforming. You wander through the land of Gallowmere, slaying Zarok's dark undead army. You must fight skeletons, shadow beasts, and other dark creatures of the void. As you play through the game and fight the dark armies, there are actually interesting mechanics that make the game stand out, especially for its age. One of which is that each level has a chalice that is only unlocked after destroying a certain amount of enemies. Once that threshold is met, the chalice can be claimed. After the level is completed, and if you claim the chalice, you can visit the Hall of Heroes. The more chalices you unlock, the more weapons and tools you also unlock to help you on your adventures, from more life potions to improved weapons. The game visually is, well, quite impressive. The environments all feel much more unique than the original. There's much more color and personality to the levels that gives them their own identity and makes them more memorable than before. Levels no longer look like brown mud and gray stone with black skyboxes. To go along with the impressive visuals, you also get to play the game in 60 frames per second and in 4K if you have a PlayStation 4 Pro. But more on that later. Another great thing about the game is the outstanding writing. Almost all characters, including some of the smaller side ones, are incredibly well written and are voiced fantastically. The subtle and dark humor in this game is quite great and has great delivery. Not only that, but it would seem that most of the voice actors from the original game have come back to reprise their roles. Or if the original could not come back, then they certainly got real close to the original. Take a listen to the gargoyles.
It has risen again, Sir Daniel Fortescue, see? The hero of Gallowmere who fell at the first charge. It has risen again, Sir Daniel Fortescue, see? The hero of Gallowmere who fell at the first charge.
However, one major change in the voice department was the narrator, as it was changed to a female voice actress, and overall, I think she did a better job than the original did.
The fabled dragon armor was forged by dragons from an age long ago. Seek out any remaining dragons if you are to claim this mighty armor.
Combat of MediEvil is a bit different than your regular RPG. See, instead of standing your ground and just swinging your sword, you kind of have to, well, swing your sword, but like a madman. skeleton, and try to dodge all manners of attacks from all manners of different enemies. Through the game, you get a large arsenal of weapons, giant swords, throwing axes, and bow and arrows to name a few, giving you a chance to approach any skirmish the way you like to. Now, even though this is a remake, it's not quite exactly the same. There have been some changes and adjustments. Some items have been shifted around from the original, and some of the levels have had minor adjustments to them. It's not too crazy in that regard, but there are differences. But one of the biggest changes thus far has been the camera and the right analog stick. See, before, MediEvil had a very distant camera. In this remake, it's brought in closer. To double down on that, you can activate the Dan Cam, where if you hold down the left trigger, you can enter a point of view similar to God of War on PS4. The right analog stick is also a great addition to the game, as it does improve the overall feel of the camera. The camera being brought close to the Dan as well really allows the player to be able to see the gorgeous environments. Along with minor changes, there are also more major changes as well, like some of the boss fights. Some of the camera angles have been completely changed, and some of the patterns are a bit different. I also noticed some difficulty changes in the boss fights, like the stone wolf statues. I found that this time around they were much easier than before. That's my personal opinion though. Now, for those of you who liked the challenge of being able to not have checkpoints like in the original did, there are no checkpoints in the middle of the levels. That means if you get a game over in the middle of a level, you gotta go back all the way to the start of that level. There's no assisting here, it is just straight like the original. There is also new endgame content, kind of like a new game plus. When you get close to the end of the game, you can release spirits back into the world. After that, in each level, there is a lost spirit to be found. Once they are found, you need to bring them back to the proper level they belong to. Once they are set back to where they belong, a new sort of mini mission begins. If you complete it, the soul is laid to rest, adding more meat to the bones of this game. Speaking of, this game is a little short, nowhere near the length of the Crash and Spyro trilogies, but even with that considered, the game is cheaper and sells for $39.99 Canadian or about $29.99 American, so you are going to be spending less to reflect that fact. So I've been gushing on this game quite a bit. Does that mean it's perfect? Well, unfortunately, no. See, there are a bunch of minor issues. Like I said, they are minor, but they happen a bit more than what's comfortable. While some animations are done wonderfully, like our one-eyed hero, other animations sometimes are a bit off. Xerox, for example, just feels like a stiff Muppet, which is kind of sad because he is the main villain. Other issues like oddly programmed AI and hit detection can sometimes rear its ugly head. But like I said, those are minor. There are 3 other flaws with the game, however, that did frustrate me. First off, though the right analog stick does help, the game's camera takes a lot of getting used to. At times, it works perfectly fine, and others, it's really janky. The camera tends to lose its mind in tight corridors or hallways. Also, during some fights, the camera automatically locks onto certain targets, and most of the time it's fine, but in one specific fight, I had to fend off other enemies and I could not unlock the camera from the main boss, so I kind of had to run in circles and swing my sword around hoping I hit the enemies as the camera did its own thing. Another issue is collisions. Sometimes even enemies can't deal with the collisions and just end up spinning and running in place, and then sometimes you get stun locked in a corner and you just kind of have to accept your fate and just, well, you know, die again. But my biggest issue for this game comes down to this one major flaw: the frame rate. When standing still or just running around, the game runs in beautiful 60 frames per second on the PlayStation 4 Pro, but in almost every level and encounter, the frame rate takes a significant dive. Not 1 or 2 frames, but it can drop anywhere from 50 to even 40 frames per second. It can be discombobulating at times and frustrating to see. However, with that said, I am going to say that compared to the original game, I think that this is the definitive way to play MediEvil. Sure, there's a few issues, but the graphical improvements, the music, the voice acting, and the writing really pulls through in this game. And for only 30 to 40 bucks, this game is 100% worth it. If you love the original MediEvil or love games from this era, I do suggest picking this game up. Overall, I do look forward for more adventures with Sir Daniel Fortescue, and I hope this remake sparks a new journey for the hero of Gallowmere. By the way, a huge shout out to my Patreons and sponsors on the channel. I appreciate your support and letting me be able to do this full time as I got a family to feed. If you want to support the channel, the Patreon is in the description below, and be sure to subscribe for more nostalgic content. And while you're at it, why not check out another video I recently made? Anyway guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.